Alright guys, it's always nerve-wracking driving the SO10 out to Orange County, especially after the last time I drove there, the engine blew. And I'll see if I can bring you guys along. If you guys aren't familiar, this is the SO10. I've got the boom strap down. We've got the 1800cc motor running good. All that exhaust is coming out of that little tiny pipe right there. It's got serious torque. Not a lot of freeway to it, but it sure doesn't go very fast. About 55 is about it. And when it first starts driving it, the speedometer doesn't work, so you got to kind of put a few miles on it. If it's warmer out, it starts working right away. I've taken it apart I don't know how many times. Kind of over it, I think. I'll just have to let it do its thing, I think, from here on out. Once it warms up, it seems to work pretty well. It's a little off. It's like 100 kilometers is about, on the speedometer, is about 55 or 56 or something like that. So, and on some of these roads, when it's uneven, like from this side to that side, like if you know if they have that division stripe where they normally used to have a lane was like whatever 12 or 14, 15, 16 feet wide or whatever they used to be, and then they made them narrower now. Well, if you have that division strip they used to use for the cement slab in the middle of the road, and it's rougher on one side than the other, it starts kind of teetering like a ship, and then it kind of gets if it's on the, it usually is very smooth, okay, but when it gets on those roads like that at 55, it can get like uncontrollably it gets worse and worse and worse, so you have to slow down. So it's kind of weird. So anyway, maybe I'll bring you guys along for part of it. Hopefully we can film while we're driving, but it's pretty scary to do. So anyway, we'll talk about it later. This is one vehicle you love traffic in. You don't want to go very fast. Just drive right through it, cruise along. Alright, so as we approach some traffic, I figured we'll just narrate a little bit and kind of tell you what was going on while I was driving this. And if you noticed earlier there, you really can't hear the engine. It's really quiet. You can hear me say things fine. You could actually have a conversation in the cab of this thing. The good about that is that, I mean, it's nice and quiet inside. The bad is you cannot hear the engine if there's a problem. And I'm really, with a VW with this much weight, you really need to hear the engine, what's going on in there, so you can kind of tune it and figure out things, get it dialed in. So when I was going through up ahead, it's going to be a little bit before we get there, I was going, just up these little, these are, just going up these little things in fourth gear, where you're going over the overpasses of the freeway. It is, when you're in fourth, when you're in second, third, it's fine going up. It doesn't even really care that much. You're barely stepping on the gas most of the time, which is good. It's telling me it has enough power. I got to tell you guys that, first of all, the 1800 is a beast. That thing is one of the toughest engines I think I could have ever built for this, because of the thick wall upper cylinders. You guys that haven't got one of those, you guys that say, oh, the 1600 is way stronger, it's like, no, the 1800 with the stroker and a 4140 or 4340 crank and chromoly rods and and thick wall upper cylinders, they are just way more bulletproof than a stock engine, way more. So if you think that, you might want to rethink, because this thing, I'll tell you what, this thing put up with some abuse that I was not aware of. So we were driving, when I was driving it, I did notice that, like when you're partly on the gas, okay, and I've checked jetting on this stuff, when you're on the gas, like light acceleration, it's fine. But when you mash on it hard, it doesn't seem like it gets that much more power. That's a couple things that are going on. One is exhaust size is very small, so it's limiting, how much exhaust comes out of there, and it maybe restricting there. I've checked, I've richened up the jetting, and it runs worse, and I leaned it back up to where it's at now, and it runs better. So I know it's not lean. So when I'm climbing hills, I noticed it, it kind of does that, where if I just stay on it lightly, the truck will slow down, okay, but it, when I mash on it hard, it doesn't seem to do that much more. So what I did on the way back is I took 2 degrees of timing out. So I had it set at 32, and we only got like 8.1 to 1 compression, so it's pretty low already. And I took it back from 32 to 30, and I noticed really no difference in power. It wasn't any better. I'm guessing that it's 30. I haven't checked it yet, so I have to actually, put a timing light on it and see where I'm at. But I'm thinking it's around 30. I just, guesstimated 2 degrees, took it out, and it seemed to run the same. And what was happening that I was unaware of is it was getting just a little tiny bit of pingage going up the hills. The reason I know that is on the way back, I was driving next to, I got off the freeway and up ahead. I didn't go all the way to Orange County on the freeway. I got off because I could suspected that it might be pinging. So I, of course, slowed down as much as I can. Got the freeway and drove it side streets, put it in third, and let third gear run at about 40 miles an hour, which gives a lot of air in there and hardly any resistance. In third, like I said, it's geared low enough that it actually will still cool the engine down. I mean, that's the typical way. If you have a VW this hot, the best way to cool it down is get up into 40 miles an hour at third, which is about 2,200 to 2,800 RPM, somewhere in that area, without having any heavy resistance. You can't do that while it's going uphill. It has to be on pretty flat ground, and it'll cool it down if your cooling system is working properly. So that's what I did, and it worked. And this was on the way out. And again, I hadn't still heard pinging. I have not heard pinging all the way. I can't hear anything. You can barely hear the engine. So I couldn't hear it, but with the window open and being next to a wall, like the one on the right over here, I could hear just a little tink to tink to tink to tink going on. And so I took 2 degrees of timing out of it, drove it up the road more, and drove it next to a wall, and I could floor it, really bogged with it just as hot as it was, and it didn't ping. So I did notice that. I also did notice when I was driving it, and so like I said, this thing put up, I was probably pinging, half the way out there, every hill. And I'm talking about freeway overpass hills. They're not hills, okay? And then when it really slows down is when you're going up to Green River Drive, which is still, it's not even really a hill. It's just uphill a little bit. But to this thing, it's like, it's serious, okay? So, and it slows down to about 90 kilometers on the speedometer, which is probably about 45, 48 miles an hour, maybe 50. And that's it, and it's not going very fast, and you're on the floor. So it's just maxed out, you guys. So this thing's the same weight as a Ford Explorer, fully loaded Ford Explorer, and those have like a 2.8 liter V6 or something like that. This thing's running an 1800 air-cooled engine. So it's it's just a lot of weight for what it is. So anyway, it's actually very smooth, and it's actually just moves right along. This truck, and I mean, normally on a flat ground, you're really not touching the gas much. You're maybe not even a quarter throttle, maybe a quarter throttle, and the torque in it is so much. It's the torquiest thing I've ever driven. It's like a tractor. I mean, it's right up there with my Kubota diesel tractor with torque. That's how much torque it has. I mean, you barely touch the gas and it just moves, in first, second, and third. And when you're in fourth, once you get up to speed, you just barely touch the gas, and it'll do 100 kilometers, 105 on the speedometer, which is about 100 kilometers. So right around there, about 60 miles an hour. So on flat ground, it's great. And so I tested it with the timing back 2 degrees, and according to my temperature head temp gauge that I have, that again, this is on the exhaust stud, so it's definitely reading hotter than if it's on the spark plug. I was getting 200 at the peak heat. It was at 206 degrees Celsius. So that's, I think it's over 400 degrees on the heads. You guys, extreme temperatures, okay? So 400 degrees at the head, and with it, and it didn't get a tight valve or anything at that point. It wasn't that hot. It was hot, but not quite that hot. And when I checked it after I took 2 degrees of timing out of it, which I started with 30 degrees, and then that's where I was thinking it was going to need to be, and we raised it to 32, which was too much, I think, really, and then back down to 30, and I noticed that it was about average was about 10 degrees cooler, 10 to 20 degrees cooler on the temp gauge. So I was about 180,
180, was over 200. It was like a 206 at the height. And then mashed down going over the same type of hills, it was at 180 to 190. So that's 10 degrees, 10 to 15 degrees less than it was. So with the 2 degrees less timing. So that did make a difference. Now, is it enough of a difference to actually climb a really long, big hill? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's just going to run hot. I just don't know if this thing's ever going to be able to climb hills. I'm going to have to try to, play with the carburetor. Maybe we'll do some emulsion tube changes, or I don't really know, because driving around here, around Riverside, I can't really get it to get hot enough. It has to take a trip like this where I'm going, over some significantly long hills, and then I have to have like a wall next to me where I've got the window open and I can hear the engine, bouncing off the wall, and it can't be just like a freeway wall, it has to be like, I have to be off the freeway, not going that fast. So that's what I did. I got off the freeway and I was next to a wall, and I noticed, when I did for it, from mid throttle to floor, it was pinging. So and then when I took the timing out of it, 2 degrees, that's all. And it didn't change the power literally at all. I can't really tell you any difference. There was no significant difference that I could tell. So the cam curve, all this stuff makes a difference, you guys, on your engine. The cam curve I've got, the cam that I've got, I had to beat on the stupid turn signal thing. That's what I was doing just there. The turn signal relay was getting stuck itself, so I don't know if I have to change that, because you need turn signals in that thing. That's the only way you're ever going to change lanes. So I kept, the cam curve has to be right, for the jetting, and for the the exhaust system you have, and all that stuff is going to determine what your timing is going to be. That's why I say 28 to 32 typical VW stuff. If you're at 32 and you get a pingage, you better back it off. Normal, if you're going like on my 9-to-1 engine, I'll be climbing a hill, it won't ping ever. It won't ping at all until I'm actually climbing a really long hill, and then right at the top, if I floor it, it'll ping. I let off the gas, I press the hill, the cooling system cools it back off, and it will ping at that point. Again, once it's cooled down, 5 minutes of driving it, even in the freeway, it cools itself down. Where this one just kind of perpetually gets hotter as you drive, just because it's just so maxed out. It's just, even though, I'm driving it, I'm only quarter throttle, but the weight and that torque push that it has, it just, it's doing it. But I noticed that it seemed to be running a little cooler. I'm hoping that that's going to solve most of it. But again, like I said, the engine's a beast. It did not even hurt that engine. Most engines, if you've got a little bit of pinging for a while, it's over. You might just kill it. You'll put a hole in the piston within seconds sometimes. This thing probably, I was like a minute long pinging going up the hill when I was going over Green River, and when I went over, and then I flattened out, cooled it down a little. It didn't really cool it down that much. And I think, the reason why it didn't really get super, super hot on the heads is because, again, we're not running the stand-up cooler. The oil cooler is one by itself, and so like right here, I'm going 100 and 105 kilometers. Believe it or not, trucks are still passing me, but I was going 105 on the speedometer or better. And that was after climbing a little bit of a hill, and it cools it down a little bit, but it's still, little by little starts to get hot, and it's definitely running hot on the freeway. But as soon as I get it off the freeway and I put it back into 1, 2, 3, 4 1, 2, 3 gears, and stay in third, it cools itself down. So the engine's doing its job properly. The air flow is good. It's just having that constant resistance, you know, the wind resistance, the weight resistance at the higher speeds is just a little bit too much for, I think, any air-cooled engine. It's just too much. So, I mean, because this thing, I'm really, like I said, I'm not even hitting the gas that hard. The only time I'm hitting it hard is when I'm going over those crests of those hills. You know, my theory is once I drive it, you know, with the timing lower, it seemed like, so I backed the timing off in Yorba Linda on the way back, because that's when I heard it. As soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, back the timing off. So I stopped in Anaheim Hills, backed the timing off, and drove along Santa Ana Canyon, and right next to, they have a little wall right next to there. I had the window open, and I'm lugging it and forth, no pinging. So that's good. So, you know, I listened to that. I was like, okay. Then I got back on the freeway. I noticed absolutely no difference in power. It was still the same torque, it's the same horsepower. It seemed like to me this, without that extra 2 degrees. So it seems like a waste to bring it back. And it seemed to have a little bit more power as I eased on the gas. So like normally when I'm climbing, if I'm quarter throttle or I'm pinned to the floor, there was almost no difference in horsepower. You just couldn't even tell. But on the way back, if I was quarter throttle and I floor it going up those little hills, it seemed like I got a little more power. So it seemed to like a little less timing. I don't know why. You know, it's VW. They talk to you. So I can't. That's why people go, "Oh, what timing should I?" I don't know. You got to try different things and figure out what works best for your engine. So anyway, going here, I'm going cruising along 100 kilometers, pretty much 100, 105 on the speedometer. It is slightly uphill, and then it goes downhill, like right about here, and you know, starts to go down, and then you go down a little slightly downhill, all the way to the 71, and at the 71 it goes uphill substantially. So I also found that if I'm at 105 on the speedometer, the RPM range is in a sweet spot for the cam and for the porting on the heads, and it seems to be have a little bit more horsepower right there. So if I can come into the hill, you know, the freeway hills at 105 on the speedometer, it wants to climb the hill better, especially after the timing backed off a little bit. So right here, again, we're going downhill, and this thing's just rolling. I mean, when I got to Huntington Beach, I mean, driving on those freeways, it was great because it was flat, super flat, you know, on the 405. Just drove like a dream out there. But just getting there from Riverside is treacherous. It's, even though this is nothing. These aren't really hills. So one of the guys wants me to take it to San Diego. I don't know if I should do it. I don't think I should. It's not the drive to go to San Diego. It's, you know, or not San Diego, actually the Oceanside, which isn't that far really. I could take it, you know, going over there. You know, there's not that many hills, so I could go all the way through Temecula down into the valley. But then when I climb out of the valley of Temecula, going up that what's it called? Right there after Temecula, going up towards Fallbrook. Okay, that's a pretty steep hill. I think that's a third gear for sure in this thing. And third gear standing on the floor. Is this engine gonna cook out? You know, I don't know. Probably. It's on the edge. You know, that's a little much for it. I think for this rig, it's just too heavy. And then on the way back is when it's even worse, because you got to go. So I get over that hill, let's say I make it okay over that one, then I get all the way down, and I go down towards Oceanside. You guys who live out that way, you guys know the freeway better, it's just as good as I do. And you're going down, you got past Fallbrook, you got that downhill there, okay? And then going towards the bridge that looks like a rainbow going over the freeway, that's a very steep uphill. Now, you get off at the 76, so you don't have to go back up that. But on the way out from what's it called, Oceanside back, you have to go up that really long grade. Now I can get off, the way I have to figure out alternative routes. Okay, there's no way I can just take this in. So like right here, I'm on it. It's like right up here ahead, right when I pass this bridge. The foot is pedal to the metal, and that's no joke. It is metal. The metal pedal is on the metal, all the way up this, and it's dropping RPMs. Maybe I'll stop for a second. You guys can listen to this. So I'm back, barely touching the gas, and it's speeding right up to 100 kilometers, but I was kind of worried that she was hot, I just, I couldn't tell. There's no noise, just quiet as a mouse. But the next hill, I think I heard the ping, okay? I think I couldn't tell. So I got off the freeway. That's where I was like, I think she's getting hot. I was even thinking about getting off the next exit here, just because, but you've got the 241, you've got 2 lanes, you got to stay over, there's a lot of options. You can pull over the side of the road right here, and not be able to get up to speed again to get on the freeway, if you can maintain it and get to the next one up in this thing, this big rig. It's not, it's not your average vehicle, that's for sure. So, yeah, the drive back from San Diego would be the real biggest worry. If I could make it through that one hill, I could probably make it to Oceanside, no problem. But on the way back, you got the grade going up between that's right near the Fallbrook exit, so I could get off. Again, I could take the old Highway 395 and just cruise, just stay in third, go 40 miles an hour, and fine, go up that. I could possibly even go through Rainbow, and take that long, go along that way, get back on around the truck stop there, and then get back on the freeway again, go down the hill, which downhill is another challenge. There's no braking system on this thing. It's not the greatest. You got to keep a lot of distance between you and everybody, so you're constantly white knuckle, thinking, okay, am I far enough away if these guys all of a sudden stop? And I mean, you really get schooled as soon as people stop quickly, how slow this thing is. You got to use the gears and everything else to slow it down. So going down those hills is always a worry. So anyway, so I get into, let's say on the way back, I would get into Temecula. I'd go back through Murrieta, okay, and then go back up from Murrieta to towards I think it's Clinton Keith Road or something like that. So that drive right there is all uphill, and there's no alternative routes. So, you know, that I know would probably be a third gear, you know, at 40 miles an hour with a lot of traffic behind me, and you know, and your engine RPMs are really high, and the engine's hot as hell going up that hill. Is it going to make it? I don't think it's a good idea. I just don't think it's. I'm not certain about it yet. I need to. Maybe I'll do some more adjustments. Change the carburetor. I was thinking about trying a different carburetor on it and seeing if I can get something that's got a little more. You know, I mean, my suggestions were to go to a 34, put an adapter on there. I'm not sure if I can do that because the air cleaner mounts to the. It may not fit, so you know, because it's going to change. That thing moves the carburetor over a quarter of an inch one way or the other, which I can't remember, to the right or to the left, but it just move it over, and it would make it difficult to put the air cleaner on. So I'm going to calculate that in. You know, right now at whatever the timing is, I have to idle this thing. I have to have the throttle all the way up for the idle. So I think it's because the engine size and the carburetor isn't really meant for that. So, yeah, it's a challenge. I'll tell you, it's you know, it's a lot of truck. You know, so down here, right here, it's downhill. Okay, and this is where I'm going downhill, cruising, doing 105. Going just smooth as glass. You know, everybody obviously is going more than 60 miles an hour. So we're just passing by me and Instagramming and getting all those different things. And FaceTime and all that, whatever. But right here when it's going up, it's just slightly uphill. And I think after that long hill, getting a little more. And it gave me, and I could tell it just didn't seem quite right, so I just left the gas. And, you know, I just, you know, the funny thing is, like I said, you know, it's right about here, I'm like mashing the gas and then letting off, mashing it and letting off, and I'm feeling, there's a little bit of difference I can hear, maybe some noise, so I'm like, not good. I'm just gonna glide accelerate. I took it down to like barely touching the gas and going uphill. It's slowing down to probably 45 miles an hour or less. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to cruise on off. It wasn't like losing power, but it was at that point where you kind of know, hey, not good. Let's get off and reassess here and keep the RPMs down, keep it out of the what I think might be the pinging, and probably was, and just take it easy and let it rejuvenate. So down in third, I drop it down to third going off, and then give it a fast idle at the stop sign, stoplight, and then cruise it and, you know, get it up, keep the RPMs up, ease on, just barely touch the gas, and it'll move pretty well doing that on the side streets now, where with the 40 horse, no, you had to floor it all the time. I mean, just to move it, it had to be floored. So again, I'm, you know, easing it down. I got it, I think, dropped a gear or two and keeping the RPMs up a little bit. And I want to try and, you know, get it to where it's cooling itself down. And it did. It cooled itself down. On the side streets, you'll see ahead. We'll talk about it live as it happened here in the next little clip. So we'll just take it up here, and it is uphill right here, but it's not terribly steep if I'm going nice and slow, and it didn't seem to mind it. Like I said, you can be going up a small hill like this, second, third gear, just barely touch the gas, and it has just as much power as if you floor it. But again, like I said, put richer jets in, it was worse, way worse, extremely worse. It wouldn't even get up into the higher RPMs. It would just kind of taper off. So I know it was too rich. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, right here again, I've got it in third. You can see I just dropped in third. And I'm just gonna let her cruise. I'm just gonna stay in third for a while. Might have dropped it back into fourth or second. I'm looking second, I think, because I'm slowing down. I'm just keeping the R's up, let it cool, keep low stress, get it third, just stay at third, go nice and slow, 35 miles an hour, doesn't matter. Let it cool down. And it did, it cools it down, and by the time I got to the next stop, which we're going to skip ahead, it got to the next stop, and it was to the point where, you know, and every time we've gotten out, you can touch the dipstick, but it's very hot. You could actually pull the dipstick out and grab it and not get burned. So it's not extremely hot, but it's definitely hot. You know, hot to touch, but not hot to, you know, where it's gonna burn you. When it's burning you, that's when it's bad. You've got a real problem then. So it wasn't that bad. It was just hot. You know, it didn't get tight valves or anything, so, but just the pinging alone just is so hard on that engine, it's not good. So anyway, took some timing out, definitely improved it quite a bit. So again, downhill, I think I was still in third, might have put it in fourth. On these streets, you know, it goes 45, 50 miles an hour, it's fine. 45 miles an hour, for some reason on the freeway, you know, you can't go that slow, you just can't do it. People just will run you over today. So, it's probably, you know, if I go out to Orange County again with it the same way, I'll probably do the same thing. I may just drive it all the way to Corona and get on the Green River and just go side street to Corona. Drive through, you know, for 2 exits on the freeway, and then get off. And just drive it on side streets all the way. Because it's fine on the side streets. There's absolutely no problem. And then once I get into freeways in Orange County, even the 55, it did get hot. You know, just coming, I went from the 73 around there. You know, I got out at Victoria and drove in the 55 all the way to Knoll Ranch, I think. Yeah. Knoll Ranch, got off there and went over to, and that's when I noticed right at the wall going along the freeway, or along there on Santa Ana Canyon. This is the road I'm on right now, but going the other way. That's when I saw the pinging, or you know, heard the pinging right there. So even going flat, it still got hot. So anyway. Well, we made it to Orange County. I got off the freeway a little early at Weir Canyon, and just climbing up the hills in fourth. It's just so, it's a lot on this thing. So anyway, I got off. I couldn't tell, it might have been pinging. I can't hear a damn thing. I tried to listen to it afterwards, but I checked the temperatures driving it afterwards, and I don't think it was. Because I can actually touch the dipstick right now. I've got a temp gauge on here, but it's on the exhaust stud, so it was at 206 degrees at the highest. So yeah, it was pretty hot. That's over 400 degrees, but that's on the exhaust stud, so that's kind of not really, that's kind of almost exhaust temp. So yeah, I have no idea really what the head temp is. I tried to get one on there, spark plug, I couldn't do it. So anyway, we have the turn signals are not working, so I'm gonna check that out, see if I can fix that, because you really need turn signals with this thing. All right, well, it looked like the turn signal relay was just acting up a little bit. Now it seems to work. I don't know, hate iffy stuff. Let's see if it works again. Can you hear it? Yeah, I don't know, for some reason I had a little bit of trouble with some of these relays, and I've used them before and I haven't had any issues. But this batch I think this one here is just acting weird. Maybe it was a little bit not quite connected good enough, so
give it a little better connection. Let's see if that works. Hopefully it does. All right, so our turn signal's back on. Motor's cooled down. It wasn't really hot, so that was pretty good. I didn't check it right when I got off the freeway, but I drove it a bit. And usually the side streets, I just cooled it down if it wasn't any hot. But I was missing this thing. Eddie noticed. I haven't got it all the way tight, but it's pretty good right now. And he has these new ones from Europe that are, you know, the little tabs on those are super hard to bend. So yeah, that was a lot easier to bend. It wasn't like really easy to bend, but it was a lot easier than the ones we've seen. So Eddie and Dave's Garage hooked us up with that, so it looks a little better. All right, so if you notice, it accelerates up to speed really pretty good. It gets up to about 50, 45, somewhere in there, fairly quickly. From there to 60 is a long run, or 55 even. You know, people go, well, just go 50 on the freeway. It's like, you know, it's not good to go that slow. You can get rear-ended real easy. People just aren't ready for that today. You know, it's not something that was expected like back in the day. You know, just when I was younger, you'd see vehicles going 50, 45 on the freeway. Not now, you know. So the young folks just, it catches them by surprise. They just aren't used to seeing it. So anyway, bright orange, bright red and white. You'd think would, but you know, they use it as a pylon. Whipping around. So anyway, I'll let the video roll from here. That's kind of where we're at. Anyway, but it's definitely a huge improvement. I don't know how much better I can get it, but I'm going to try to do some more stuff with the carburation maybe. It did improve quite a bit with the timing backed off a little, and seemed to run a little bit cooler. So it's just weird. I do think that with a little bit of compression that it would be okay, but no, it just not with this much weight. So anyway, yeah, we're doing like 100 right here. 100 doesn't seem like it. Here we are. 100 kilometers. I'm going up this little grade. It slows down to about 95 on the speedometer, so it's like 52, something like that. Not bad. Anyway, that's it, guys. I'll let this roll. You guys can write in if you want. If you don't want to, I'll talk to the next one. And then please like, share, and subscribe.
6 miles.